All right, so now that we have a project, let's manage the day-to-day work. We'll start with the roadmap on the left. The roadmap can be, in our example here, we have a project. So let's call it maybe like the phase 1 of the project. And then we'll call this phase 2. Now in Jira lingo, these are called epics. So they represent a long, a large portion of a project. It's going to consist of multiple stories. I won't get into the agile methodology. You can look that up separately, but it's called an epic. But here's how we use them. It's essentially just represent on a timeline the work that is going to take place over a given stretch of time. And that's how I use it. So when I'm working with other departments and we're talking about communicating timelines, expectations, I use epics to kind of roadmap out and block out large efforts that we'll be undertaking. If it's specific to a project, we expect phase 1 to be completed by this time, phase 2 to be over by end of year, that sort of thing. Inside each epic, you can actually click in and start creating your issues. Now, again, I hate the word issue. These are different types of records, tasks or whatever inside your project. So maybe we're going to do some discovery, and we're going to do some, what else? Some development, and then we'll do some testing. Now I'm just using kind of the default story task type. You can change that in settings. You can create new ones, but we're just kind of thinking through some concepts right here. So you may want to block out at a high level maybe the key efforts within your project. Maybe now we'll do some UAT testing. And then we will do a release and call it good. Okay, so that's like some high level road mapping. Now, as we were creating those all got added to what's called the backlog. So the backlog represents all of the work that needs to get done specific to this project, or if you're a team, people submitting tickets or requests to you. And you've got just a growing pile of work that you need to sort through. I found that the best way to do that is to use sprints. The Jira sprints have improved quite a bit. I typically name them like the current week number. So let's say it's week 44. At the time that I'm recording this video, it's on a Wednesday. Typically I don't do that. So let's say that the sprint started on Monday and it'll end on Friday at I don't know. I'm an overachiever. I'll be done by 6 p.m. Add some notes or goals if you want. But that puts a time frame on that sprint. Now check this out. If you go back to the roadmap, you can actually see your sprint on the roadmap. We need to zoom in a little bit here. So if we go in a week, there's our sprint. So if I look at the tasks that we created, we can actually put them into a sprint here from the roadmap. So as you're starting to plan out your epics and your projects, on the roadmap, you can actually arrange the important efforts in that epic from the roadmap, which I think is a nice feature. But what we did is we essentially moved it into the sprint. So we could have done that two ways. We did it from the roadmap section, but you can also just drag stuff in. Right? So we can just drag in what we want to accomplish in week 44. Let's plan week 45. So look how cool this is. Jira's smart enough to append dates for it's smart. It named it to the next sequential number and gave it dates that match. If we look at our roadmap, now we're going to see 2 sprints back to back. And so maybe we want to put some of these tasks here. We could do that, but we could also drag them around on the roadmap. So we could say, hey, let's do the release here, and we'll do our testing here. Right? So this is awesome to have nothing else in the backlog. Obviously, that's not realistic. You're going to have records down below. You can create as many sprints as you need. An important thing that is key, I think, to managing your work output throughput is to leverage story points on your tasks. And that's what this little dash button here is. It actually exposes this little ticker where you can put an estimated story point. Again, that's another agile concept we don't really want to go too into in this video, but essentially you're estimating the amount of work that particular effort will require. And so what you're doing there as you're adding those story points is you're getting a visual representation up above of the amount of work that's going into this sprint. So you can start to say, oh crap, this week is getting way too busy. I can't take on more stuff. So if you've got issues here in the backlog, maybe you've got a bug, right? Let's quickly create a problem that's out here, like error message XYZ. Okay, and we've kind of thought that's kind of a hairy bug. That's like a big 5-pointer, right? Well, crap. Well, what sprint should we put this in? It's looking like we've already got 9 story points that we've committed to, maybe with our business or maybe with our stakeholders. We got to get these things done. Do we have enough room for another 5-pointer? Maybe not, right? So it gives you a way to kind of gauge how busy your weeks are getting, and you can better set expectations with your stakeholders as you start to mature in your process and understand what your velocity is. How many story points can you get done within a given sprint? There's this cool button over here that says Insights. That's really helpful as you're sprint planning. I don't have any useful data yet because this is a brand new instance, but as you start completing your sprints, it'll start showing you your average velocity right here. So as you're preparing and kind of moving your backlog around and figuring out when you're going to do what, understanding what your backlog or what your velocity is, and then not overcommitting, not overscheduling is super helpful. So that's how you manage the backlog. Once you've got everything kind of, well, let's just sneak in this bug. We're feeling pretty aggressive here. We're going to overcommit and underdeliver. My favorite motto. Notice that the different colors will represent if there's a task in a different status. So say something carried over from the previous week, it would show up in blue. So it's important to note those distinctions there. We'll hit Start Sprint. When you start the sprint, it double confirms the dates. It snapshots those tasks and begins tracking your velocity. And before, I should have gone to the board. Before you did that, the board is blank. You have to activate a sprint, and then you have tasks on the board. And it's only the tasks on the current sprint that will appear on the board. Okay. And another thing I like to have kind of visible is this Insights button. I showed it earlier. It'll show you as you're going your progress inside your sprint. Now, this is just a normal Kanban board. It's like Trello. Hopefully this is pretty familiar for folks, but you can move your tasks around into the different columns. We'll do maybe a separate deep dive on project settings, but inside your settings, you can change the column headers. You can actually just click one right here if you want to do a quick and easy one. We'll just do it for fun. You could say, this is something that I do. I don't know if this is against some sort of agile methodology, but whatever. I like to queue up what I want to do for the day. So as I'm thinking about my morning, maybe I'll come in here and say, okay, I feel like I can get this thing done today. I'm going to focus on it and get it done. That's just me, but that's an example of adding a column. That's not specific to you. That's shared amongst your whole team. So you need to be cautious of that and aware of that. Communicate that with your team. A couple other handy features that are worth noting. You can filter by assignee. So if there's multiple people, you can click on that person's name and see the tasks that are assigned to that person. Okay, so that's how you work with the roadmap. You populate your backlog, you start your sprint, and then you start using the board to clear out and complete your work. Hopefully that's a helpful video. Thanks.